This is going to be the most difficult review I've ever had to make, because I have to look at this from two different perspectives. One, the person that has never picked up DJ equipment and is trying to get into the DJ market, and they're trying to figure out what they want to do. And then two, the person that's already in the industry, has their own gear, and is looking at this like this might be a possibility. So this product becomes an interesting piece of tech. But before we get into that, let's talk about the specs of this piece of gear. By the way, I'm not going to talk about the Prime Engine software because I spent a lot of time talking about that. Let's just say the Engine Prime software works. It works well. If you want a little bit more about that, you can check my Denon Prime 4 video, which kind of breaks down all of that. All right, so on the backs you have your standard outs, which is your XLR outs right here, and the unbalanced RCA outs. Now, what I mentioned on the Prime 4, I'm mentioning on this, and that is a dedicated stereo mono switch. Switchable right on the back, makes it really easy to switch from stereo to mono without having to go into software settings. Then we have our standard booths, which is a 1/4 inch. It would have been nice to have XLRs, but I know given the size of this box, 1/4 inch is pretty much standard, so they're giving you 2 1/4 inch booth outputs, along with a auxiliary input, RCAs, and then 2 independent microphone XLR combo jacks. All the way to your left side, you have a USB input, you have a USB slot for media, and then you have your Ethernet link port. For a hardware piece this size, they're giving you a lot of in and outs, and I really, really appreciate that, especially the 2 microphones. You typically never see 2 microphones on a hardware of this size. Let's move over to the front of the panel. Now the front of the panel includes a headphone jack, both 1/4 inch and mini jack, and then all of your mixing points are located on the front. The Q-Mix, which gives you your balance between your headphone and the audio output, the level, which is the actual level of your headphones, and then your auxiliary input volume. Just to the right of your auxiliary volume, you have your SD card. So you have 2 ways of getting music into your system. So the Prime is laid out very much like the Prime 4, although everything is just more squished. It's just more compromised. And compromise is probably the word that I want to use for this product. There's a lot of compromises that were made to make this thing go the way they wanted it to go. So let's take a look at the top of the board. So we have your effect settings. Now your effect settings give you pretty much everything you need. You turn the knob, your effects pop up here. There's a number of effects, your echo, your delay, your hall, ping pong, auto gate, flanger. Pretty much everything you would want for effects are built in here. Moving down, you have your Deck 1 audio inputs. You have your main volume, your low, your mid, and your high. The knobs feel good. They have a good length, easy to grab onto. On all of your EQ settings, you do have a stop point at the 12 o'clock to let you know you are dead center. And they all have that on there except for the volume, which does not have anything that stops it from minimum to max. Move over to your right side here. You have your standard volumes for all of your inputs and outputs. So you have your mic volume here, your mic 2, your booth, and your master, along with your on and off buttons for your mics. And as you can see here, a dedicated talk over feature just by holding down the shift and then pressing the on button, which you'll see it starts to blink. And then that's how you know that you're in talk over. What is talk over for all of you that don't know? Basically, it means that as long as this is on, when you talk in the microphone, the volume for the music will drop down to allow for space for your microphone. So you don't have to continuously turn down the deck volume or hit the EQs. You can just talk and it'll just bring it down. So it's a cool little feature to have. Okay, let's move down to the deck settings here. Now on your deck settings, you have your hot cue, your loop, your roll, and your bank. You have 4 hot cue buttons. Now, these buttons are probably the weakest link of everything on here because they're not like your typical pads. They are legitimately buttons. You know, on your pads, when you touch the pad, you'll actually get some action from it. On these, there is a click. And the click, until you hear that click, and then you can see the register for the button clicking and turning white. Until then, nothing is actually happening, so you have to click that. Is it a big deal? No, but for me, as I'm touching this button, a lot of the times I'm trying to do fast motion, and that extra little delay of having to click down the button does add some time to what you're doing. So it would have been nice if these were pads versus the buttons. They're not. It is what it is. Obviously, you only have 4 cue points here. So in order to get all 8 cue points, you have your bank settings. So once you click your bank setting, it moves down, basically down a row, just like on your standard mixers, and then you have access to these additional cue points. The only thing that I have a problem with is that it doesn't reset itself when you are in other settings. So in other words, if I'm in the loop roll, and I want to talk about the loop roll real quick anyway. So if you know anything about the Prime series, they have not only 4/4 loops, but then they have 3/4 loops. The green ones are your 4/4s, and the purple ones are your 3/4s. The swing loop. Not a big deal, except for if you're trying to get to some loop rolls quickly, because you only have now 2 4/4 options instead of the 4, okay? So you have to switch the bank in order to get to the other ones. But the problem is, once I go back to the hot cues, you're still on that second row of empty cues. So if I'm doing a loop roll for whatever reason, and I want to jump to the hot cues, I have to hit the bank again to get to my main hot cues. It would have been nice if on the bank, when you hit that hot cue, it basically resets the bank and starts from 0 again. In my mind, it makes more sense that way. Loops are the same. You hit the loop, it loops it off, you hit it again, and now you're in repeat mode. Also, along with those loops, you do have your auto loop knob just by clicking on it, and then it gives you your auto loop setting, and then you can shrink this down just by turning the knob as much as you want. But it defaults to a 4/4 loop. When it's looping, the light blinks white. When it's not looping, it's static. You hold down the shift, and then you can move through the song just by holding the shift. You have your normal sync button, which also doubles as a key sync button. Then we move over to the fader and the jog wheels, your favorite. As much as I want to say I don't like the jog wheels, they're not that bad. It just takes a little bit of getting used to, especially if you're like trying to scratch and you kind of move it forward or you let it go too hard. It does adjust accordingly. The fader is fine. It's not my favorite fader. It's very short, it has short travel. And because it has short travel, I feel that sometimes it's harder to get to that pinpointed like 0.5 or 0.2 because it just seems to jump past it unless you're going really, really slow. I also want you to notice as I'm moving the fader up and or slowing it down, you do see that the waveform is being modified by that. And I want you to remember that because I'm gonna talk about something else in a minute. Your pitch bend and then your range just by holding the shift, and then you can switch the range. As you can see here, it's at plus 50, 20, 10, 8, and 4 cue buttons for your cue and your play and pause. Again, buttons, not pads. So let's take a look at the center channel here. Now this is where you're gonna spend the majority of your time if you're not in the screen, and let's talk about how this works. Now, if you know how to use the Prime 4 or any of the other Denon stuff, you're gonna know how to use this. It's very much the same. You got your back button, which takes you through the screen. You got your forward button, which takes you from panel to panel. You have your loads, both left and right. If you do any double clicks on one of the sides, it will turn into an instant double. The knob, very much just like the Prime 4, easy to use, easy to navigate, easy to load through. On both channels, you have your sweep effects, and you have both a echo effect and a high pass, low pass. On the high pass, low pass, you have your complete cut, it's complete kill, to low. And again, complete kill. On your 2, you can echo out. And then on your other side, you have your echo right there. So it makes it really simple to use your echo without having to go into your effects, make changes there for the top 2 things that you're gonna use most of the time, the echo and the high pass, low pass filter. The screen itself is definitely usable. I've used the screen. The search button, the keyboard is smaller. It's more like your maybe an iPad mini versus your full-size iPad, but I can still type, that's a bad example. I can still type the way I want to and move through it relatively quickly. It feels just like the Prime 4, just a little bit smaller, but when you look at the screen, it's not a screen that's so small that you have to struggle with it. The only struggling points I get is trying to see how much battery I have left, because that font is super small. Also, I've said it on the Prime 4, I'm gonna say it here, put a clock on this too. Why not? As far as the menu settings are the same as in all the Prime series, slight differences in what they do, but your Wi-Fi, your nudge sensitivity, your track view, your screen lighting, and your screen battery, you can adjust this, but if you want the 4 hours, you have to keep that thing on low. That's it. It's pretty straightforward, just like your Prime 4. The deck colors are irrelevant on this thing. You can change your deck colors, but the difference is, once you change your deck colors, it doesn't actually do anything but change these two. But besides that, there is no other indications of the coloring on here. So it's much better on the Prime 4 because of all the things that are lit up, but not on here. Now everything is pretty much where it needs to be. And once you understand the design, it's easy to kind of get to where you need to go. I will say this though, in the dark, the deck volumes are practically invisible. That's the one thing that I didn't like about the board, because there's no lighting up here. There's lighting everywhere else, so it's easy to get to, but there's no lighting here. It would have been nice if maybe one of these knobs was lit up, or there was just something to indicate what was going on. Then you have your standard up faders, which are basic. There's no way to adjust the cut on the up faders. The only thing you can adjust is your crossfade. Now, if you remember what I was talking about with the adjustment to the wave file here, on your up faders, there is no volume indicators for the track, so you don't really know how hot they're coming in. So I have found myself going into other songs, and then the song has been extremely low, but I have no indicators to tell me how hot the volume is. So it would be nice, they could create a adjustable waveform. So as I adjust the gain on the deck, that the waveform itself will adjust up and down. I think VDJ does that, and now Rekordbox 6 has some indicators on there. I almost forgot about the crossfader. People are gonna ask the question, how is it to scratch on? Can you scratch on it? The jog wheels feel really small. Can you do anything on it? And the simple answer is, yes, you can. The crossfader is actually better than I thought. Once I was able to go into these kind of temporary settings, because they're not the same settings as in the menu settings. You can only adjust the crossfader from within these settings. There's no crossfader adjustment on the box itself, so you have to do it from within here. Also in this, you got your break time. You can adjust how much you want to stop. Now, here is the thing with the crossfader that I don't like, because I love the fact that you can adjust it. So it is a complete scratching system. I mean, especially if you're one of those portable rig kind of scratch DJs. When I set it to full cut, there is a space in between the end of the crossfader to when the music actually comes through. So right now, I have a lot of play right here, and there's still no music. Music doesn't kick in until right there. If you're doing any type of crabs or stabs, anything like that, is gonna mess with you as a scratch DJ. So hopefully they can get that fixed to where the cut-in point starts much closer to the actual end of the cross versus. Now, the main selling point of this box is the fact that it is battery powered, which means, as you can see right here, besides the booth output, I'm running this thing without a plug. This is my third time testing the battery, and I've gotten different results each time. I know I watched Carlos's video, and he had mentioned that he got I think it was like 338. So when I tested it originally with Wi-Fi on, and I literally streamed from Tidal the entire time. Never played anything from the hard drive, just streaming from Tidal. And the first time I streamed from Tidal, I got 4 hours and 13 minutes out of this device. So I was like, well, that's fantastic. They're saying 4 is your average, 4 hours and 13, I'm good with. And then I tested it again. So I turned off the Wi-Fi halfway through, but I did have the mic level on and just the volume up, and then I had everything just playing straight through like I normally would. And this time I got 3 hours and 53 minutes. So it was a good 20-minute difference from the first time. So I decided, let's check it one more time. I'm currently sitting at 24% and my stopwatch is currently at 3 hours and 24 minutes. So this should, at 24% left, this should take me past 4 hours. Is it weird that the numbers have changed depending on each charge? A little bit. I would especially think that if I'm using Wi-Fi the entire time, I should get less than when I wasn't using Wi-Fi. So that was a little strange. So the question is, who is this device for? Because that is going to be the $1,000,000 question. And I have people that have been saying, oh, hey, look, I've been using this device and now I want to move up. Which one should I get? Should I get the Prime Go? Should I get the Prime 2 or the Prime 4? And I am at odds with this question. If this is your only device, I would probably recommend going with the Prime 2 or the Prime 4. If this is your secondary device, then having this is a great secondary device. Because a lot of people right now, if you're using Serato, if you're using Rekordbox, if you have a backup, it's probably a backup computer. Now, a backup computer, for instance, if we're using Macs, it's gonna cost you $1,000. We're sitting right here at this price point. So for a lot of people, having to choose between a laptop or something like this, which you can use as a backup, but you can also use it like on the go and DJing weddings in the sand and just being places where maybe you don't have access to a huge power source. This is going to be a killer box. If you are a diehard Serato guy, diehard Rekordbox guy, I have a harder time suggesting this for you. Because a lot of people are like, well, I'll just get my Numark to go and I'll just play it out on my computer. It's like, yeah, that's fine, you can do that, but you still need a mixer. You still need a lot of things. Now, can you get all of these things for cheaper? Technically you can, but if you wanted a legitimate backup system, one computer is not gonna cut it. You're gonna need 2 computers. And at the moment you say, I'm gonna get a secondary computer, you're now basically doing what this device does without it. I do wanna mention that weight-wise, it's not the lightest thing. If you're looking at size, this is the XP1. If we put this on top of this, we can see that depth-wise, it's probably another 1.5 inches, and then another 2.25 inches on this side. So it's a very small unit, but unlike the XP1, it's not a light unit. This thing is beefy. It's a metal construction. It feels durable and it is weighty. Besides that, it is a great device. And anybody that owns this device is going to like it. And they're going to appreciate the flexibility of using it anywhere they want. Outside, in the car, on a bus, on the couch. It makes things so easy, especially if you're using the higher ups, the Prime 2s, the Prime 4s. It makes it so much more flexible. Like, let's say your Prime 4 is in a case and it's in the closet. Well, you can do all of your necessary adjustments here, set your cue points, get the music going, everything you need to do, and then just take out the SD card, pop it in there, and it's been like you've been using that Prime 4 the entire time. You can do all your practicing. You can do all the things you normally do. It's a great device. It's just, I'm not sure it's a $1,000 great device, but I can't take away from the fact that it is a great device. Will I buy it? I'm gonna be honest with you. I probably will buy it because I want a legitimate backup. You can DJ anywhere with this thing, okay? So that's never gonna be an issue. It's full, it does everything you need to do, and no computer, small footprint. So I don't want you to think that it's not, because it is. It's just a little pricey. But for a lot of people, it's not gonna matter. For other people who don't see a value in having this toy is what people are calling it, hey, that's all on you, but it is definitely not a toy. All right, guys, before my house turns into a madhouse with people tap dancing all over the place, we're gonna finish this up. Guys, if you found what I said here useful, hit that like button. If you found what I said here really useful, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow me on the Instagrams and the Twitters. And guys, let me know what you feel about this controller down in the comments below. Always a pleasure. If I don't talk to you later, we'll talk soon. Peace.